Okay, I hope the screen is visible. Yep. Cool, and here we go. So again, as we know, this is the second session of Women Automation series, where we'll be deep diving into the UI automation, or what we can say, the user interface automation, how you can achieve the automation using the StudioX as a tool, right? So yes, we are going to run our first UI automation in this session. This is going to be a hands-on session. I want all of you to follow along, do the steps that I'm doing. I'll take a pause and I'll make sure that you also follow. So, you can actually do it along with me. So this is again going to be not a PPT based session, but yeah, we'll be doing everything in this session today. And if you have any queries or questions, you can again reach out to me over the LinkedIn or any other networks. So this is a team. Again, let me just, this is a team. And myself, Nidhi, as Rohit has already introduced, and we have Rohit with us. Christina and Vibhor is another team for the Women in Automation series. And again, I'll take you through the agenda once more. So what we are going to do first is we'll install the StudioX tool. We'll just verify whether you have followed the correct steps and you have StudioX properly installed on your system. Then we will see what is user interface automation, or what we say UI automation. Then we'll be looking at the various activities that StudioX gives you to do the UI-based automation. Then we'll be creating our first bot, which will be automating the task that you're supposed to do on a web application, right? So this is going to be a first bot based on the web application, right? And then we'll be seeing how you can actually create your robot much more faster by using one of the feature of StudioX known as recording, right? And then we'll be looking at what more can be automated with UI. So previously we would have seen how we can automate the task on a web page, right? How we can use the recording to create a bot faster. And then we'll be looking at if UI automation can be achieved on a desktop-based application, right? Then we will have a Q&A round where you can unmute yourself and ask any queries, and then we'll be sharing the few academic courses that you can do to get certified or diploma in the StudioX tool, right? So yeah, let's start with the first one, which is just verification of if you have properly installed the UiPath StudioX tool on your machine, right? So these are the steps that we have to follow to install the StudioX. So the first thing that you're supposed to do is go to UiPath Automation Cloud and create an account on that particular URL, right? And on the right hand side of the app option, you will see to sign up for the UiPath Automation Cloud for community. So create your account on the UiPath Automation Cloud is the first step that you have to do. The second step would be, once you are inside or you have logged into the automation cloud, you have to click on the download UiPath Studio. There's no specific installer for the StudioX. You have to install the installer for the UiPath Studio. Once you install and run it on your system, we have the option to switch between the profiles. That's how we actually land into the StudioX tool, right? So do not get confused. Click on the download UiPath Studio button. Once it has been downloaded, then you can double click and run the UiPath Studio installer, which you have previously downloaded, right? So once you double click on it, it will by default log into your UiPath Automation Cloud if you are already signed in. And then the next thing that you have to do is choose the StudioX profile, which is something I previously mentioned, that once you run or open your UiPath Studio, you have to choose your profile properly, because UiPath Studio gives you two profiles. One is called UiPath Studio, the other one is called StudioX. The StudioX is for the citizen developers, which is what we'll be going through in this particular session, right? So this is just an overview if the installation you have done is correct or you have followed the steps. If not, there's a link in the chat session which will ping you. You can follow those steps and you can install it after the session and watch the recording and do the automation, right? Again, after this session, if you would like to learn more about the citizen developer automation, you want to try your hands-on, you want to create more automations, you want to learn more about how you can automate your Excel-based task, Word-based task, email-based task, everything. If you want to learn, then please go ahead and take the RPA Citizen Developer Foundation course, which is there on the UiPath Academy. So this will actually help you to become a good citizen developer again. So yeah, again, Rohit will help you with the link to take this particular course, right? So now let's understand what is user interface automation, which we have been talking a lot in the agenda, right? In the sessions, introduction, everything, right? So what is user interface automation, right? Let's look at it. Before that, I just wanted to check, Rohit, is my voice okay, or is the internet connection is still?
Yes, it is okay now. Yeah.
And the screen is clear, right? The
It is
controls
clear.
are not visible. Okay, perfect.
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay, so let's understand what is user interface, right? What is the term user interface means, right? So as you can see, the definition on the screen itself, right? A user interface or UI is a series of screens, pages, and visual elements like buttons and input fields that enable you to interact with an application. So right, it's very much obvious that whatever you see on the screen that helps you to interact with a particular application is what is called user interface. So how do you interact with your any application on your laptop or desktop? You have sign-in buttons, you have text fields, you have radio buttons, you have check boxes, right? So all of these fields is what we call as a user interface elements, right? And you interact with them a lot while you're doing your day-to-day tasks on your laptop or your desktops, right? So this is what the user interface is all about. As you can see in the picture itself, if you look at employee registration form, right? You have the radio buttons, you have various text boxes to fill in your form, first name, last name. Then you have the drop downs to choose your state, right? So all of these that help you to interact with the application, right? These are all user interface. And in day-to-day life, we do this a lot. While opening a particular email or opening the Outlook, you click on the Outlook sign, right? When going or opening a particular web page or going to a Chrome and opening a particular URL, you type that particular URL in that particular text field, right? So that particular text field is actually helping you to put your input. And when you click on the Google search button, right, that particular button is helping you interact with the Google search engine. So these are all user interface elements and we interact them a lot, right? So this is all about the UI automation. It is the process of simulating mouse and keyboard actions on Windows and controls. So if this is something you are doing on your day-to-day basis and you are doing it very repetitively, and this is something that doesn't require your brain, and this is something that you are doing in bulk, I would say, right? You are doing this a lot in your day-to-day life. So all of these actions can be easily automated. And this is what is called as UI automation, when you are simulating user actions on the user interface. So actually, you will not be the one who will be filling up the form online and clicking on the submit button. It will be the bot, or you can say the UiPath StudioX robot that will be simulating those actions on your behalf, right? So this is all about what the UI automation is. Again, as we can see, right? As a business user, you interact with a lot of different applications like internet browsers, calculators, right? Calculator is, again, you have buttons and controls where you click and then you get and read the information, right? So this is again comes under the user interface category, or the any other CRM applications. So this is what a business user interact with in a day-to-day life a lot. So this is what we are going to see, that how to automate such boring actions, right, and give it to a StudioX UiPath robot. Okay, so we have been talking about what is UI automation and why we need the UI automation. Now, how to do it with the StudioX, right? So if you have attended the first session of the StudioX, you would have seen that StudioX actually gives you various building blocks called activities that help you to simulate those actions on the screen. So let me share the next screen. So let's talk about the StudioX activities, right? So again, as I said, activities are the building blocks that helps you to interact with the application, right? This helps you to simulate those actions on the screen, right? So if you're saying you want to click, right? So there'll be an activity called as click in the StudioX, which you can drag and drop and let the robot know that you want to click on this particular user interface element. That's all, right? So again, all interactions with the UI can split into two categories, right? So one is called as input category and second is called the output category. So the input category is sending or adding something to the application. You are actually sending some kind of actions or controls into the application. So when we say input, you can say on the screen, we have click, you are clicking, it means you are sending a particular action, a click action, right? Type into, you are selecting an item from the drop down, you are checking or unchecking a radio button, or I would say a checkbox button, right? So these all comes under the input category where you are sending the actions to the application, right? The other set of activities are called the output activities, where you're not sending the actions, but you are getting something from the application, right? So for example, again, get text, you are reading something from the window. Get URL, you are reading a URL of a particular web page or any other website, right? Get active window, you want to see which is your current active window, right? So this is the activity that you can use. Then we have the extract data table, extract table data. So now this particular activity helps you to extract the whole tabular data from the screen and read it and store it in your bot and do the further manipulation that you want to do, right? So this is again comes under the output category where you are taking something from the application, correct? So as you can see on the right hand side, we have a picture from the StudioX screen, and as you can see under the actions, you have all the activities mentioned. We have check, uncheck, click, extract table data, get active window, get text, get URL, and there are a lot more. You can actually explore it. So once you're done with today's automation or the session, you can actually try more automations from your end as well. So one thing is that in the StudioX, you have something called as resources. Now, as you can see, right, on the picture that is there. So under the app and web card, there is something called as resources. And under the resources, we have use application browser, right? So before you actually automate a particular application, you have to connect with that particular resource. You cannot read an email unless you open your Outlook, right? Similarly, you cannot perform any action on a web page unless you hit that URL, right? So resources are what helps you to connect with that particular application, right? So if you want to work with the web page, then make sure that your web page is open and it is connected with the UiPath StudioX, right? So the use application browser is what helps you to achieve that. It lets you connect with the resource first, and further you can perform those activities on that particular resource once it is connected successfully, right? So this is all about how you can automate your UI-based task using the StudioX activities. We will be looking at all of these activities, not all I would say, but yeah, most of them in today's sessions, and I'll leave rest of them for you to explore. Okay, so now it's the time for some hands-on, right? So we are going to create a first robot. And again, this is going to be a hands-on session. I want you to do it along with me. So whatever I'm doing on the screen, make sure you follow it with me. I'll be taking few pauses so that you can also perform parallelly with me. If you want to download this particular exercise that we will be doing, then here's a link that Rohit will help you with. So, but as of now, you do not need it. But later, if you want to refer the code of this StudioX, then you can go ahead and go to this particular link, right? And correct. So these are the steps that we are going to do. We are going to find a unicorn name in this particular depot. Step one would be, we are going to open the StudioX and we'll be downloading the project file. Downloading the project file is again optional. You can save it as a later reference. Then for any web automation to be performed, we need to install the browser extension. So this is what we will be also looking at. Then we have the create automation workflow and run the project. So we will be creating the automation workflow and we'll see if this works or not. So this is what we are going to do in another 10 to 15 minutes. Make sure you follow me along, right? So the next step, first step says I'll be opening the StudioX. Let me close already opened StudioX. Okay, go ahead and search with your studio, UiPath Studio, and open it. I'll be taking a pause so that you can also do it with me. And make sure once you're done, you are putting all your status in the chat window so that I can see that it is done from your end. I can go ahead, right? So once you land up on the UiPath Studio page, right? Now, one thing that most of the people do is that they are in the studio profile, but they're supposed to work in the StudioX profile, right? So make sure that you choose the profile correct. For that, if you go to the settings, sorry, if you, wait a minute, yeah, if you go to the settings, you can see license in profile here, right? And if you see change profile, if you click on it, make sure that you are under the UiPath StudioX profile. So this is what we will be working today. UiPath Studio, as I said, is for the advanced RPA developers. And this is for the studio, the citizen developers, right? So make sure you choose this profile. I'm already into the same, so I'll not do that part. Okay. Now to create your first blank task, you need to click on a blank task, right? So if I click on a blank task, it will give some random generic name. So let me tell this session 2, right? And click on the create button. This is where your project file or your robot files or the code will be saved, right? And then press create. So it will create a blank task for you where you can drag and drop the activities and create your automations, right? So you're creating a workspace first within the StudioX profile. So whenever you are done with creating the task, the blank task, make sure that you put in the chat window that it's done from your end, and then I'll move ahead. Cool, I guess Michael is even faster than me. Yes, so this is your blank task. This is how you will see a blank StudioX a project, right? In the first session, you would have already covered everything about these ribbons, how you can use them, what is the home tab, what is the design tab, what is the activities tab, and everything from this, right? So you can refer the session 1 if you want to understand more about the UI of this. Now, what we are going to do is, so we are going to go to this particular URL called as rpasamples.com/unicorn name. So this is the website where we will be automating few actions, which is few clicks, few types, and few reading from the window, right? So a simple task is what we are going to do. I will ping the link. So please open this particular link in your system, which is rpasamples.com/unicorn name generator. Now let's move ahead and start the automation. Now, as I said, when you are doing any automation with a web page, right? Or any website that you have to open in a particular browser, you have to install the plugin to interact with the web from the StudioX. So how the StudioX interacts with this page is through a plugin, right? And where you can find this plugin, if you go again to this particular session, under the tools, right? Now you can see a UiPath extensions. So if you are opening your website in Edge, make sure you install this particular extension. If you're opening your web page in a Chrome browser, you install this particular extension. Similarly, Firefox. So these are the 3 plugins that help you to interact or automate a web page, right? So based on the browser that we're using, make sure you install that particular extension. So since I am using the Chrome, I've already installed the extension, but let me show you the steps. You just need to click on it, right? And say if you want to continue installing the UiPath extension for Chrome, please close all your windows. I'll say, okay. And now the Chrome is open right now, right? And it say that it is still running, and I'll say, okay, please close and install it. So it will say the Chrome extension has been successfully installed, right? And you need to enable the browser extension. So another mistake another thing that we have to make sure after installing the extension is make sure that you enable it, right? How to enable the extension is what we will be seeing. Now I'm into the Chrome browser and I'll click on these 3 dots and I click on the settings. Now, if you go to the extensions part, you can actually see this has been installed. UiPath Web Automation, this is the version. And now you can see this has been enabled, right? So if you think that this is disabled, make sure you enable it. And that's all. If you go to the details section, right? So this is about enabling and disabling the extension. If you do not want to use it, make sure you disable it. Now, the next thing that you have to make sure that the developer mode is enabled. Again, this is another thing that helps you to automate your any task on the Chrome. So if you disable it, you will not be able to interact with the web page from your UiPath StudioX. So again, this has to be enabled. Okay. So now once this is done, we have everything prerequisite done. Now we are ready to automate the task. So let me open the page again, Unicorn Name Generator. Right. Okay, we'll answer the questions, everything, Michael, and please make sure that you are following these steps and mention done if you have done this.
Nidhi, we can't hear you.
And now automating. Okay. The connection is unstable again.
I think it's okay now. I think.
Is it better? No, just let me. Okay, let me just try. Oh, this videos in the data.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so let's start creating the bot. And as we mentioned, to connect with the web page, you will need an activity called as use application browser, right? So again, if I go to the activities panel, let me collapse all of these, right? Now it makes very obvious, right? If you want to create your automation for a web page, right? So this is the part where you will find all the activities. So if you expand this, you will see all the activities. Now you do not need the SAP activities. So I'll just do this, correct? Now, these are the activities that will help you to automate all your tasks on a web page. And the first thing that we have to do is use application browser activities, because first we have to tell our bot that this is the web page where you need to perform all the actions, right? So either you can double click or you can simply drag it to your workspace here, right? So once you do it, you can see the use application browser activities has been appeared on your developer panel, right? Now, if you see indicate application to automate the UI. So this is where you just need to click. There are so many other things which we will not be covering in today's session. So we are going to cover a little basic UI automation, right? So do not get confused with all the options that you see in the activities, right? So make sure you just do whatever is required for to be right. So indicate application to automate. I'll click on this, and once I come back to the web page, I can see a green screen is appearing, right? So it says click to select the application. I'll click on this particular page and it will automatically identify the page. So it has taken the URL as well as the screenshot, right? So I did not have to do anything, just indicate which web page you want to automate, right? So this is done. I'll wait for you guys to actually do it. Use an activity called use application browser and indicate your web page. And once you're done, make sure that you mention it in the chat window that you are done. And if not, no worries, I'll take a 10 seconds pause and I'll continue. Okay, so now once we are done with indicating the application, the next thing that we have to do is we want to type a name. So let me first show it manually what we are trying to achieve here. So I want to type my name here. And then I would like to choose the birthday month, right? And then when I click on this button, I will get my unicorn name. So this is what I want to read. So these are the 3 steps, not 3, the 4 steps. I want to type my name, choose the birth month and click on this button and check what is my unicorn name, right? So make sure you also find your unicorn name with this particular just demo and share with us. So I'll go back to the StudioX. So the first step that we have to do is we want to type, right? So it's very obvious that we have to use a typing to activity. So there are 2 things that you can do. One is either you can search within this particular scope of application browser, app and web automation. So you can find all the activities, right? Click is there and get active window, everything is there, right? So maybe either type into is also there. So either you can directly search from here or there is something you can directly search from this particular text box, right? So if you already know the name of the activity, you can simply type it. So we want to type. Now, another thing that we have to make sure is, right, that whatever activities now we are dropping is within this particular scope, right? So within the use application browser, we are dropping the typing to activity, right? Because this is something we want to achieve within this particular window or within this particular page, right? If you make it or move it outside, let me try, you will get the error, right? This activity must be used within the use application browser activity. So because you have to tell your bot where you want to type. To tell your bot where you want to type, you have to mention the screen. So we have already mentioned the screen and now we want to type within this. That's all we have to do, right? Now type into other thing, indicate in Chrome. Again, I'll simply click on it and I'll say this is where I want to type. So this is your target. So target is where you want to perform the action, right? So this is the text box where you want to perform it. You can see a green rectangular sign, right? So just click on it when you're sure that it is your target, right? And the next thing that you will see is something in a a blue rectangular box, right? So this is called as anchor. Now the anchor actually helps you to identify your element, your UI element uniquely on the screen, right? So as you can see, we have 2 text box, right? One is this, another one is this. How does the bot know that which text box we have to write? So this one is always a drop down right now, but in real-time scenarios, you have multiple text boxes, right? To make sure that the bot types into the correct field, right? You have to just mention how the bot can uniquely identify. So you can say this is your relative, you can say the text, right? So a text box just beside the what is your name text is where we have to type. That's all. Once you're sure with your anchor, click on it and click on the confirm button. Once you're done, you will go back to the StudioX window. You can see it has already captured the screen and everything. Now, what do you want to type now? We have captured where we want to type. We want to type the name. So you can click on the plus button. Now, there are a few options that help you to actually customize your input, right? So ask when run is when you want to give your input when the bot is running. So this is what you can use it. Again, paste from clipboard if you have already pasted it, copied it from somewhere and now you want to just paste it, then this is what you can use. Now, if you want to send the special keys, any of the keyboard keys, then you can use this, right? But we are very sure that we just need to type a predefined text. So I'll say text. And what is the text? This is the name that we have to. Now press save. We have mentioned what we want to type, right? I hope you have followed till now here. I'll take a second, 10 seconds pause. So make sure that you also done with the same. So just use a type into activity and mention the text field where we have to type. And in the same activity, mention what you want to type. So please mention your name. Okay, so I hope this is done. And now let's move and choose the month, right? So since we have to choose it from a drop down, we will need to use a different activity. Now the type into will not work. So to choose a particular value from a drop down, we have something called as select item. Right. So I'll take this select item and drag it here, right? Make sure that you follow the sequence also correctly, that after the type into, we want to do this, right? So now we have to indicate it on the screen where a drop down is. So again, the steps are completely same. Click on indicate in Chrome. So I click on it and this is the target. So this is where the drop down is. So this is the target. And to make sure that the bot clicks on the correct one, this is the anchor. We are done. Just make sure the target and anchor are correct and click on the confirm button. That's all you have to do. Now you can see still there is some warning, right? This field required some input, right? So now all of your input from the web page, all of these values have been captured by the StudioX automatically for you, right? Now you can choose the month from here. So this is how the actually plugins help you to automate or read values from your web pages, right? So now all of this information has been come within your activity. So make sure you just choose whatever value you want. So choose your birth month and use this activity to select the item from the drop down. And that's all. This is the second task that we are going to perform. You can either search it from the text field or within the app and web automation, you can find all of these activities, right? So any way is fine. So you can see the select item activities right here. You can simply double click or drag it. Okay, now let's move to the third action, which is clicking on this get name button, right? So now, it's very obvious that we want to click a button, right? So similarly, we have an activity called click. So either you can get it from here, or since we know the activity name, we can simply search it from there. So do not get confused with the other similar activities, because when you hover on a particular activity, right, you can actually see it says UiPath.UIAutomation.activity. So that's what you have to use. And if you hover over this, right, these are also the UI automation based activities, but it comes for the SAP based application. So for the web pages, this is what we are going to use. So this is a very generic click activity. So make sure you put it after the select item action that we have done, right? Now again, indicate in Chrome. We will indicate in Chrome. So this is the target. And we actually do not need to give the anchor here right now because we only have a single button on the screen, right? So we can also skip the anchor if we think that is, I mean, very obvious, or we have a only single or unique element on the screen, right? So maybe you can confirm from here, and that's all. You want to click single left click is what you want to do. You can choose the other options as well, but we will keep the default, which is single left click, right? So again, make sure that you now use this activity after the select item. And now our sequence of activities are, we have connected with a web page called as rpasamples.com/unicorn name, right? And then we are typing into a field, then we are choosing a value from a drop down, and then we are clicking on a particular button. So these are the steps that we are performing, right? Now, the next thing that we have to do is we have to read the value from this particular field, right? This is my unicorn name, and this is what I have to read. So now, if you remember, we have two categories, input and output, right? In the input, we are sending the actions into the application, while in the output category, we are reading something from the application. So now this is the time we will be using activities that comes under that particular category. So for this, we have something called as get text. So you can see get text is there. I'll drag it after the click activity, right? So again, indicate from where do you want to read. I'll click on this, and this is the unicorn name. So simply click on this. This is my target, right? Now here comes the trick, right? You have to specify the anchor. Now, if you specify this anchor, right, which is my name, this can actually vary from person to person. So if we, this particular automation is being run by, say for example, Rohit, right? So now if I give anchor as a Nidhi, it will not work, because next time when Rohit is running on his system and he's entering his name, the value will be replaced with Rohit and your automation will not work, right? So make sure that you give anchor as something which is fixed and is not being varied when you're running the automations, right? So your unicorn name text is something is very fixed on this particular page, right? So just click on this thing and say confirm. Now you are done with from where you want to read. Now you have done reading it. Now you want to save it in your automation. So save to, you have to click on the plus button. Now you can either copy it to a clipboard or you can save for later use, right? So we'll choose save for later use because we want to use it further in the automation, right? So this is what you can do. If you're reading something in your automations, make sure you save it and then you can use it anytime when you want to use, right? So this is the name that you have to give to your unicorn name value. So I'll say my unicorn name. And press OK. Correct. So now whatever you're reading from the screen will be saved in my unicorn name. Okay. Now the next thing that we want to do is we want to display whatever we have read from the screen. So for this, we have a very basic activity called as message box. Right. So what do you want to display? Again, click on the plus button, and now we are going to use our saved value. So if you go to use saved value, you can see my unicorn name is already there because we have just now saved it, right? So just click on it and it will take the value automatically. So we are done with our first bot, right? And this is it. I mean, this is your very first spot with the UI automation where we are using a web page and we are performing 4 actions on the screen, which is type, selecting a value from a drop down, clicking on a button and reading it from the page again, right? So this is again a very small automation, but when you are doing all of these tasks in your day-to-day life, you may be filling up a form which has 10 to 15 fields and you are filling like 20 to 30 forms, same forms on a day-to-day basis, right? You could be reading those values from an Excel file, right? And putting it in the UI application then. So right now we have done everything, I would say hard coded, or we have already provided the values. But you can also read from the Excel and enter the values here, or read from any other sources and enter your values here, right? So that's all. I hope you are done with these steps. Yeah, please save it. And now we are going to run our first bot, and let's see if it works. So I'll simply click on run. Now, when you see a green icon, it means it has started. We'll enter, type, click, read the name, and show it on the message box. So this is my unicorn name. I'll be waiting for your unicorn name in the chat window. So make sure you share with us, right? If not, maybe after the session as well. Cool. That's all for your first. Oh wow, it's really a good name. So this is a first bot with the find unicorn name, right? And let me switch back to the PPT, right? So this was a very first demo, which was very basic, based on the UI automation on a website, right? And again, I would say congratulations, you got your unicorn name. Now we have something called as recording feature in StudioX, right? So this is something we created a bot, right? We manually dragged all the activities from the activities panel to the main panel, right? We were dragging the activities, we were mentioning the values, and we were indicating the screen by ourselves, right? And suppose if this is something that you have to do for so many elements, right? Again, as I said, if you have 15 to 20 elements on your screen, and you are manually dragging and dropping, each activity called as click activities, for example. So you have 15 click activities, you have to drag it in your workflow, mention where you want to type, mention the values, right? So again, it becomes very monotonous and you do not want to do it, right? So again, to make your automation bot faster, right? How you can create a bot faster, you have something called as recording. And this recording features let you create all the activities that you have to do manually by itself. So what you have to do, just record your screen, whatever you're doing on the screen, and StudioX will create all of the workflow itself by. So even if you're not aware of what activity you have to use, again, the recording feature is very helpful. So what happens is, for example, you do not know that to enter a value in a text field, you need a type into activity, right? So you simply click on the recording button and mention this is what you are typing. And when you go back to the workflow, it will simply say type into activities has been used. So this is another way of actually identifying which activities has to be used where, because again, recording gives you a ready-made workflow, which you can customize. So if you think that once the recording is done, you cannot add it to your workflow, that's not completely true. You can completely customize it. You want to delete any activity from the recording section, right? You want to mention any other value, you want to change the order, you want to first click and then type, right? So you can do anything that you want to do. So that's what the recording feature in StudioX is. So the second method of automating the user interface is using the web or app recording feature. So as you can see on the screen, under the design panel, there is something called as app and web recorder, right? So again, this is something we already discussed, that adding activities for all the actions you perform within user interface can become quite time consuming. And let's see how you can record your actions on the screen and translate them into the StudioX activities, right? Again, there's a small note that the recorder works only on automating the user interfaces, right? And it will not work for tasks which involves Excel, Outlook, Word, files and folder automation, because you have a separate set of activities to interact these applications, right? So if you want to automate your Excel-based task, you already have a package with the activities that gives you to read a cell from Excel, right? Write a cell, write a table, create a chart in Excel, create a pivot table in Excel. So all of these activities are there. You do not have to use the UI-based activities, correct? And that's all we have in the recording section. So let me quickly actually show you the recording feature also, right? So maybe let me just delete it, and you can see, right? You have it. When you clicked on, let me just close it once again and show it. In the design panel, this is where you will actually find, yes, the app and web recorder uses a new approach of UI automation and anchor based, right, multi technologies, and it generates the modern activities for you. So again, now you have an inbuilt bot that is creating your bot, right? So this is again something very a great part of using it. So as you can see, when I start the recording, it is giving me the options where I want to do the actions, right? And I can move it around, right? So say this is what you want to do. So click on this field, correct? And now it will identify the anchor. So again, everything is same whatever we were doing, but we were just recording it. We are not manually using the activities. And this is your anchor. This is also correct. Now it is already given you a pop-up. Type a value, right? So what do you want to type? Again, I'll say the name and I'll click on the confirm button. This is done. So it has created by default an activity, as you can see, right? Type into. Now, next thing that you want to do, you want to click on this drop down. And done. Target and anchor automatically done. You want to select an item. This is the month I want to choose, right? And say you are done. Now select item activity already has been added. Now you want to click on this button, just say click. This is your target, and when you are done, you got the click activity. So now if you see the sequence in this particular recorder, it has already used an activity to connect with your application, to type, to select, and to click. That's all. You have not done anything. Press the save button, and now you can see the magic. All of these activities are already there for you. You do not have to do anything. Type into is there with the value, select item activity is there with the value, and the click activity is there again. It has automatically created the scope with the URL and with everything, right? So again, you already have an inbuilt bot to create your bot again, I would say, right? So if you really want to test it, you can simply run it. It'll do all the actions same as you are doing while you are driving or your activities manually in the design panel. So see, this is all you can do it. And when you have so many activities to create in the workflow, you can go ahead and use this feature. And as I said, you can also manipulate or change these activities whenever you want. You want to change the values, you can do it. So these are the recording steps. You want to delete the activity, you can delete it. You want to change the sequence, you can also do that. So that's all about the recording feature that you have, which helps you to create your bot even more faster, right? So I'll delete this automation as well. If you can see, I mean, during the session we mentioned, right, you have the project files where you can download all of these code, right? So no worries, if you are not able to follow up right now with me, you will get all the code. So you can simply download the file and run it on an automation and see how it is working, and then you can also learn, right? So let's see what else we have in the UI automation. So we have now understood that while working with the UI automation, the recording feature is going to be really helpful, because if you do not know the activity name, it can help you. If you have so many activities to be drag and drop in the designer panel, the recording feature again can help you, right? Now let's see another quick demo of a password generator, right? So this is what I'll leave it. I mean, I will leave it to you to do it after the session, that how you want to do using a recording feature or using the activities that you are aware of, right? So I will leave this up to you how you will be creating the automation, but I'll show you the steps right now here. So for this, what we are going to do is we will be going to an application. So if you go to rpsamples.com, these are the various hands-on, I'd say, exercises that you can do. So we just now did the unicorn name generator. Now we'll go to the password generator. Again, as I said, after this session, why don't you try these two as well, right? So these are a little more advanced. So make sure if you want to learn, you can choose them, right? So this is what we will be doing the second demo. We'll be creating a password, right? So for example, if there are like 50 employees, 100 employees who have onboarded the company and you want to generate a random password for each employee. So suppose you have to do these activities for 50 to 100 employees, right? Now how your bot can simply generate a password and send it to the employees, right? So again, this is a UI-based automation. For example, you want to change the length of the password. You want a password with 12 as a length, and you do not want symbols. Done. You got your random password. And when you click on this, you will see copy to clipboard activities right here, right? So that's what you can use. So these are the 3 steps that we are going to use. We will be putting the value, the length of the password that we want, the things that we want and we don't want. So we will uncheck the symbols button and we'll copy the value to the clipboard, right? Let me refresh it and go back to the studio screen. The first thing that we have to do is connect with the web page. So I'll use something called as use application browser. We already know now. Indicate the application. I'll indicate the application. This is the web page, right? Make sure the page is open. Done. The URL is already taken. The screenshot is already taken. Now the next thing that you're supposed to do is type in this particular field, right? So again, I'll use an activity called as type into. You can also use the recording if you want to make it quick and indicate this is the target and this is the anchor, right? Click on the confirm. Now instead of 24, what is the length that we want? We want a 12 as the value, right? So I'll go to text and say 12. Done, save it. Now the next thing that we have to do is we have to uncheck this particular field, right? So I'm sure there would be an activity called as check uncheck. So right, you can see it. Now after the type into, this is what you have to do and indicate this is your button and this is your anchor. So now this is, you can see this is where the anchor and target based approach is being followed. You can see there are 4 checkboxes on the screen. Now, if you simply say you want to click on this checkbox, the bot could be confused out of 4. But when you say a checkbox besides the symbol text, right? So that helps you, the bot, to identify the element uniquely on the screen. And then you simply click on the confirm button, right? Now you can see in the action, there is check, uncheck, or toggle. So right now we want to uncheck it, right? And then you have the even option to check it and toggle it. It simply means if it's checked, it will uncheck it and the other way around, right? So make sure you choose the action appropriately. So you want to uncheck it, right? And now the next thing that we would like to do is click, right? And this is, sorry, this is where you want to click next to this value. Done, right? Okay, so now what happens is when you click on this particular button, this is called copy to clipboard. It means your value has been already copied to the clipboard, right? So you do not have to save it anywhere else. Now we will simply use an activity called as message box, right? Now the value. Now if you click on the plus button, right, as we discussed actually earlier, that either you can mention the text, the predefined value that this is what you want to, see it on the screen of the message box, right? But this time we want to take the value from the clipboard, because when we clicked on that button, the value has been saved in the clipboard already, and we just want to paste it here in the message box. And that's all. We are done with the password generator. So this is doing it for one employee, or say one person. You can repeat it for like 50 times or so many times that you want, right? And that's all. Okay, why I'm saving a web page. This is done. I'll save the automation, and now let's see if it works. Now you can see, right? We got the same value that we have here in the message box, right? So this is how you can read or read the values from the web pages, paste it into the clipboard, and still use it within your other activities, right? And similarly, if for example, let me show you again. I'll simply refresh it and say you want to type. So we have given 12 as a value, but for example, you want to let user type the length of the password, right? So we will choose ask when run. And now if I click on the run button, you will see a pop-up, enter a value, right? So now here you can actually mention that you want a password with a 12 as a length, and then it will simply mention the 12, uncheck, copy to clipboard, and show it on the message box, right? So these are the options that are available. Now, again, I'll leave it up to you to play around more with these activities, the application, use the other options that you see, try to send these special keys, try to use the other options that are available based from ask when run and all of these, right? And other activities as well. So if I have to show you, you can simply go to rtsamples.com, which we saw, and you have other samples as well to try on. For example, sales opportunity. If you go now, you can see you want to read the whole tabular data from this particular screen, right? Let me delete it. And when you go to the table extraction, right, this is how you can actually extract the data from the whole table. This is something that you see, right? It's the data which is following a tabular pattern, correct? So you have to click on the add data and start giving, would you like to extract all the columns from the table? So StudioX has already identified that the control that you have mentioned or indicated right now is a part of a table. So would you like to read the whole table, right? And you can simply say yes. See, all the columns have been read, right? Account name, country, opportunity owner, stage, quantity, unit, sales, everything has been read. And how many rows that you want to read. If you simply want to read 10 to 15 rows from the data, you can mention it, maximum number of pages. So if, for example, your table is across various pages, you have to go to next page, right, to get the data. So you can mention till how many pages you want to read, right? So I'll say no limit. You can see 18 rows and 9 columns is what it has already identified. Now again, as we said, if your data is spanning across multiple pages, you can use this particular next button, right? And simply mention the button element, right? So you sometimes have an arrow button to move to the next page, right? So just indicate that arrow button, and while you run the bot, it will keep clicking on the next button till the limit that you have mentioned in the maximum pages. So if you want to go till 5 pages, it will click on the next button, next arrow button, only 5 times, right? So yeah, this is another thing for you to play around after this session. If you're reading something in the tabular format, right, make sure you use this. And again, this is one. Then again, we have supplier management system. This is another demo that you can use, right? You have these drop downs to play around. Again, this follows a tabular pattern. You have few buttons, for example, click and delete, right? And when you click on the new supplier, you have a new form that comes up, right? Where you have, again, various fields to fill in. You have a date to select, right? All of these things you want to try using the UI automation. And this is something that most of the business users do in their day-to-day life. They fill up a lot of form online, or submit it, read the values, extract the values, save it somewhere, right? So this is again your another option to play around. So yes, make sure you bookmark this page and also take the academy course. This because this is always covered in the academy course already, right? So that's all we have in the UI automation based on a web page or a website. Now, if you think that the UI automation is only limited to a website or a web page or a browser, no, it is not. You can also automate your desktop applications, right? So something that you do not need to run on the browser, right? So to run any web page, right, you have to hit a browser and go to and open a URL, right? While the desktop application is something sitting already installed on your system, and sometimes you do not need the internet connection also to open them, right? A basic example is a calculator, right? It is something already installed on your system. You simply need to double click or open it from the from where it is already existing, right? And again, you do not need an internet connection for this. So these all are sort of little examples of the desktop applications. So you can also automate all of these applications using the StudioX. So again, we will quickly see a demo of a desktop application, how you can automate a task that you're performing using the StudioX. So this is an application which is from the UiPath StudioX academic course. So I have just downloaded this particular application on my system, and I'll show you how you can do the automation using it. Right? It is all given in the URL where you have to download the project files. So this particular application is also part of that particular folder. So don't worry, you will also get it in the URL, right? So yes, the things that we are going to do is we will be opening the StudioX. You can download the project file because this is where the application is you have. Then create the automation and run the bot, right? Something that you have to notice here is this does not require a prerequisite of installing a plugin, right? So again, since you're not interacting with a browser, you do not need to install a browser plugin. You can simply open a StudioX and start creating your automations, right? So again, you have few resources if you want to learn more about user interface automation with StudioX. You want to take a diploma on Academy, then please go ahead and search the course. Again, there is a documentation from on the UiPath website. So you can also find the whole activities, detailed description of what is UI automation and what are the activities, how to use it and everything, and few basic samples demo as well. So it's all there in the UiPath documentation website, right? So make sure you explore this as well, right? Before we actually move into the Q&A interaction, let's see the website, right? Not the website again, sorry. The desktop application, right? So this is what you have. This could be something very similar. You interact while you work in your day-to-day life, right? An application that is sitting on your system, you open it, again, you have few text fields, you have radio buttons, you have check boxes, you have something to read, right? So this is something we have already seen it, right? That user interface, right? There are certain elements that are helping you to interact with this application. And if this is something you are doing it again manually and repetitively, then please give it to the StudioX to take care of, and it will simulate all the actions on your behalf, right? So again, this is very similar what we have been doing till now. if you see, right? So first thing that we have to use is we'll have to use a resource called as use application browser. Now you could understand why it is called as use application / browser, because it helps you to connect with both type of applications. So earlier we were using it for the browser. Now we will be using it for an application, right? Again, you can simply double click or drag and drop, or also you can use the recording feature. When you want to indicate, this is how you can indicate. That's all right. So do not go and mention the whole screen. Make sure whatever is the window part of that particular application, right? You only highlight that part on the screen. Once you're done, it'll take the screenshot, and now it knows where is the application installed, right? So I did not mention the path actually, but you can see under the desktop, under the Women in Automation folder, we have the application name, right? So if I have to show you, this is where my installer file is, right? So you do not also have to mention it. It has automatically identified the application path from your system, right? And now there's something called as match exact title, right? So if you look at the title of the window, this is called WI, right? And if this is something that is fixed, right, and it never changes, then you can use match exact title. But if you think this is something that may change, right, or there would be some text that could be appended from the other day, right, then make sure you uncheck it. So sometimes, for example, in few of the application, what you'll see is it will mention the title and then the date and time, right? And the date and time will vary. If you're opening the application tomorrow, the date and time will vary, right? So if that part is dynamic, then make sure you uncheck this part. But if that is something going to be completely static, then you can use it, right? That's all while connecting with a desktop-based application. The other controls that we saw are completely same. If you want to type, you have again similar activities as type into, right? So again, the same thing, we have to follow the same approach. We have to drop the activities within the scope or within the resource, right? So whatever actions that you want to perform on that application should be within the scope, right? So now this is type into, it says indicate in app, right? So earlier we were seeing indicate in Chrome, right? This is just the few basic differences that you will see while changing between the application types. But other than that, everything is same. The activities name are same, right? So say, for example, this is where you want to type, and this is your anchor. Again, we can see there are 3 text boxes, right? So again, this is where the anchor is going to help you. Something maybe I would like to mention here is, if you think this is not something that you can customize, you can go ahead and click on the settings button. So if you click on the settings button, you can actually see all the details right here, right? So as you can see, your target part is this, your anchor part is this. So if I collapse this, right? Now, what was your target? Your target was this. If you open this part, right, it has taken a few parameters as automation ID, right? And the role, a few of these things, right? So if you want to further change them, or you want to further modify them, or you want to make them dynamic, you can do all of these things. So if you go to the academy course, you have a complete course to actually learn how you can play along to make your selectors. This is what we call as selectors, to make these selectors dynamic. So if you think sometimes these value changes, the automation ID changes or the role changes, right? Or in future, there are a few changes in the application itself and you want to tweak it, right? So this is where you can come and just make sure that you fix your automations, right? So again, this whole course is available on Academy if you want to learn more. But since we are trying to cover the basic ones, we'll just skip it. Again, on the anchor part, you can see the text is called cache in. So if I open it says that the name of the control that you have identified it as anchor is cache in. And the role is text, right? And again, this is a fuzzy selector. It shows the accuracy, right? If you want to ignore the text, you can choose it. So this is something all comes under the advanced UI automation. So if you want to again learn more, you can go ahead and take the academy course. So again, this is the type into that we have done. Again, we have to use the same activities if you want, right? I'll not be doing the whole automation, but I'll show you how it works completely same as what we have been doing with the web page, right? So if I say check and check here and indicate an app, so you can see if you want to uncheck or check this particular thing, right? You click on this and you say this is your anchor. The configuration is your anchor here, right? And say confirm. So this is called as check because we want to perform the check action right now. So now once this is done, again, if you want to click on these radio buttons, you can simply use a click activity to if you want to click on the radio buttons, right? So if I use the click activity here, indicate an app. So for example, you want to click on the withdrawal. Done. Confirm, correct? And now, yeah, I mean, these are the similar activities that we have been using, right? Type into check, uncheck, click, right? So similarly, same activities is going to work in this particular type of application, right? That's all. Let's try to run it and see. Right. So this is what it has done. It has actually checked on this particular thing, clicked on this radio button. But since we did not mention the what we want to type here in the type into activity, it did not actually type anything. So you can simply say any value that you want to type, right? And again, the same activity, if you want to read something from the application, right? You have a get text activity where you can simply just read if you want to read the transaction number, because every time the transaction number changes, and for each transaction that you are doing in this application, there is a new number that is generated and you want to save it somewhere in the Excel or anywhere, right? So for that, you want to read the generated transaction number. So we can say read this particular part. So this is the target and this is the anchor, right? And click on the confirm button. Where do you want to save it? Let's say copy to clipboard simply. And same thing, we will be displaying it in the message box, right? So paste from clipboard. Done. Because we actually saved the value we have read from here in the clipboard, and the same value will be displaying in the message box, right? So this is something we did it in the web-based automation as well. And let's see if the same set of activities can help you to automate your task in a desktop-based application. So I've run the bot and it has completed, right? So now you can see your transaction number has been read successfully and displayed in the message box, right? And it has clicked on the checkbox, click on the radio button and everything, right? So this is something, again, you can try and play around with. There are so many controls in the application. There's a scale slider, right? You try this. There's the other checkboxes. There's so many things that you can actually try your hands on, right? And that's all for the demo and today's session on UI interface or the user interface or the UI automation. And if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, this is my LinkedIn profile URL. I'll be happy to connect again with all of you. And now we are open for the Q&A round. If you have any. Thank you, Rohit. Yes, definitely. I have a YouTube channel with all this StudioX content. So if you would like to learn more about the StudioX, right? So you can go ahead and see the videos, and why don't you subscribe as well? Definitely, please take your time. Okay, so I'll just take up the question that Michael has put up in the chat earlier, that how can I check if a tool is already installed? Example, Excel add-in, right? Um, this is something when you actually go to the plugin section, right? And when you want to click on the plugin part, right? You can actually see that you actually get a pop-up that it has been already installed, and if you want to repair it, right? So when it comes to the Excel edit, right? So we saw in the browser plugin, so it said that if you want to install it, please click press, right? But if you want to make sure and you want to check whether the Chrome plugin or the browser plugin is already there, right? So this is something I showed you. Click on those three buttons in the Chrome, go to the settings part, and just check whether the plugin is already there or not. That's the simplest way to check the browser plugin. Now, when it comes to the Excel plugin, if you click on the Excel plugin button in the tools section or the settings section in the StudioX, it will say you want to repair it, right? So that's the message or the pop-up that you get if you're trying to do it when it's already installed. The other way could be just open an Excel and try to work with any Excel-based activity and see if you are trying to communicate with the Excel and it is happening, right? So let me check if I already have the Excel plugin installed.
Nidhi, if you're showing something, your screen is not on share.
Oh, okay. I am just checking if. Just give me 2 minutes. Maybe I can create an Excel file and. I'm trying to actually connect with the file once. Okay, let me know. I hope my screen is visible.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so again, if you go to the tab here, you can see the installation plugin here, right? This is what the warning right now you'll get when you click on this particular button, but also let me check from the StudioX if I'm able to spy the or connect with the Excel file. So I've just created a dummy Excel file right here, and I'm trying to connect with using an activity called as write cell. So what you want to write, I'll say Excel sheet number 1, no, indicate in Excel. So now you can see this UiPath integration Excel add-in is already there when you're trying to connect with the Excel. So it actually shows that the plugin is already there. If there will be no plugin, right, you will not see these options when you are trying to connect with the Excel from the StudioX. So that's just a quick way to check if the plugin is already there, right? So once you click on this, you confirm. It actually takes the Excel sheet name and the cell name where we want to type, right? So that's something I follow. Cool. Are there any other questions, right? Or we are good to close the session?
I don't think we have any questions. In case you have any questions, feel free to connect with Nidhi individually or myself, and we would be very happy to answer any queries that you might have. Also, please tune into all the further sessions that we'll be organizing on the community platform, and hope it was a very good experience for all of you. Thank you so much, Nidhi, for sparing your time and sharing your expertise and insights for into this working session. I'm sure all the participants had a very informative and good time over here. So thank you all. Have a very good night based on where you are, and looking forward to connecting with you on the future sessions that we'll be organizing.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, everyone. Thank you so much. Have a great
Thank
day.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.